Yeah, I'm gonna blame that on the storm. Okay, so I see you guys joining us again. Thanks. Hot Face, what's going on? Miss Money Cakes, everybody. Kara, okay. Miss Diamond, what's going on? Nikki Baby, I see you. Allie, thanks for joining me again. Not sure what happened there, but we're right back on it. So, what were we talking about? We were talking about Brandy, what's going on? Yeah, so I was in the middle of talking about, thanks for joining me again, guys. Sorry about that. I was in the middle of talking about just, in terms of abstinence and the role that plays. If you're in that space where you are practicing abstinence, is great. It keeps you, clear. It keeps you aware of, who's there for the physical versus who may be there for a longer, more meaningful journey. So I wouldn't, look at, opening up to people, meaning also you need to open up sexually to them. But, I think that in terms of, when you are considering a mate, someone that you're going to really build with, really take inventory in terms of, how they make you feel, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Are you guys in alignment before you go any further in terms of investing in that relationship? So I know that there may have been a question or two that were asked after Hazy's question. I hope that you can ask that question again if you're back with us. Sorry for the technical difficulty, but it happens. So thanks for joining us again. Monica, thanks for joining us as well. I see you there. If you're just now joining for the first time, please ask any question related to relationships. This is, Wednesdays with Wes. It's a rainy Wednesday at that. And, all types of shenanigans typically take place technically when you have storms in the area, but it's all good. So I have a bag of some random and anonymous questions that I can pull from. But as you already know, if you've ever been to the relationship script, when we do the random and anonymous questions, it's really so that we can make sure that at the end of the day, thanks for joining us again, Michelle. At the end of the day, that we are actually answering questions that are reflective of your interests. We don't like to go with that old school prescribed approach. We want to actually make sure that the questions you asked are the questions that I'm answering. So that's the reason why I ask you to ask those questions either through this thread or you can DM me and one of my team members will actually put the question on the thread without your name, of course, and we can go from there. But I also have, as a backup, just in case my audience there, you guys, are acting shy, I can actually pull from this and give you guys a moment to get some courage and ask the question or situation that you may have, pose it to me. So here's the next question. This one actually was written down from one of my team members because it was sent to through the DM. It says, I'm receiving mixed signals and he's not that, he's not that into you. You have intimacy on a cerebral level, but he has not chosen you. Do you stay or go? It's interesting because I was just now talking about, celibacy, right? And in celibacy, I think it allows you the ability to actually, discern between, whether or not someone is there for you, out of just pure carnal, lust, or if there's a real connection and you can build from that. So if someone is, you and that person have a very cerebral, kind of mental connection, that's great. It may mean that person, that's really where the action is for them. They may be, as they call it, a sapiosexual, a person that gets turned on from, intellectual conversation and stimulation, that type of thing. It may mean that this person is asexual, where they're really not that sexual, but they would actually rather, communicate and interact in other intimate ways than just sexually. So, getting to know that person and really what makes them tick, how they're wired, is very important. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're not into you. It could just mean that they just have a different flow. Not everyone has the same appetite. And, again, when you start thinking about other things, like the number one thing, religiously, where are they? Where are they aligned? And are you aligned with them in that space? And so, these are conversations that you want to have so that you can, make sure that you're on the same page and you have the same expectations. All right? Allie, I see you have a question, or Allie said, "Tell wishy-washy dude, peace out. It doesn't usually, get better." I don't agree with you, Allie. I think that not everyone is in that space sexually. People have different appetites, and again, when you start talking about what is that person's journey, they may, after the last relationship, decide, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and be celibate. And, especially when you hear that from a man, you're like, wow, like he must not be into me. And that's not true. There are lots of guys out there that are practicing celibacy as well. Not as many as women in many instances, but overall there are more women than men, right? So at the end of the day, I'm sure that it's not always a matter of just lack of interest in you sexually, but he could actually again be on his journey, and his journey require that from a religious standpoint, that he doesn't engage in any sexual behavior until he's married. And again, without having that direct conversation, there's a lot of assumptions that can take place, and often you're going to be way off of mark when you make those assumptions. Okay, so Allie talking about, she missed the celibacy part. Whatever, Allie. You just calling him wishy-washy because he doesn't want to get down with the get down. Whatever. So calm before the storm. You said in that case, how should you approach him, or should you wait? No, I don't think you need to wait for him. I think at the end of the day, when you're talking about whatever you may be curious about, if you're wondering if he's really that into you, ask the question, have a conversation. I think that you should be very direct when it comes to your feelings. I think often the main challenge between men and women in conversations about feelings is that we get too strategic. Talk about where you're coming from, why you feel how you feel. And I think more than likely you'll actually be surprised that someone is, how they respond to you. So don't get too caught up in the strategy of how do I figure out if this person's really into me or not. No, I don't think you really need to do all of that. Often we're just trying to collect data instead of talking directly to the source. Talk to the source, talk to him, and find out, have you had the conversation about where he is religiously? Have you had a conversation about past relationships? And where he's at now as a result of that. So, think about that. Father Drew, thanks for joining us. Southern Girl Bling, what's going on? Thank you for joining us. I appreciate that. All right. Hazy Wise, you said, how could someone who has not dated in a while put themselves out there again? Well, I wouldn't even say, the first thing is, if you haven't dated for a while, you need to put yourself back in there again, not out there again, okay? The idea of being out there, sometimes can be very, scary, out there, like it's the wilderness, it's the, you're in the forest or somewhere that's really foreign. And while dating has changed significantly in terms of, there's a lot of online platforms and things of that nature, at the end of the day, remember, that you just need to get to know who you are, get to know yourself in that sense. And when you do that, you'll actually be, have a clearer sense of how you need to flow. So don't think that you have to go with the masses in terms of, the type of, apps that you're going to now put on your phone and all that other good stuff. That's not necessary. Talk about what your expectations are. Talk about what your preferences are in terms of how you communicate and all that good stuff. But just be you, be yourself. Be willing to have conversations with different types of people. Meaning, challenge yourself. Not all the time do you need to actually be in front of someone who's a twin. Sometimes in terms of finding different types of people who flow a different way, or if you're a blue collar worker, talking to someone that's white collar, and just whatever it is. And even if you're our African American people talking with people that are Hispanic or Asian or white. Again, you don't know who your next mate could be, because at the end of the day, as narrow as you may make it, may be as slim it may be for finding them. So take out the out and put in the in. All right, getting back in the game, interacting with people, okay, and being authentic to yourself while you're doing it. Michelle, it says, just ask the questions. I agree. I think you're responding to the other comment. I totally agree. Just be direct about it, and If they're not into you, I'm pretty sure that their response will demonstrate that. And if they are into you, they'll probably give you some more context for why you may be getting a different kind of vibe from them. S. White, thanks for joining us. I appreciate that. All right. Pumpkin, you asking the question, do you think sex on the first date is more acceptable with age? No. I think that at the end of the day, when you talk about sex on the first date, you got to think about where you're going after that. Sex on the first date often can make things complicated. So I'm not a big fan of sex on the first date. When I was younger, yeah, I'm not going to lie to you, right? But I think at the end of the day, sex brings with it a lot of things. It makes it complicated. And complicated in the sense that if you really are serious about that person and you just acted on, the chemistry and everything else that was going on, in many ways it may dampen or, may dilute the potential for you really to have that same kind of trajectory, that kind of future when you, go into that space, pun intended. The other part about it is that, what's the rush? If you are, feeling this person, then what's the rush of getting to know them some more? And trust and believe. I'm not coming from a foreign space. I think at the end of the day, I've met and in my history, my past, I've met someone and you can click a certain kind of way and like, wow, but at the end of the day, if you're not going anywhere, what's the rush? So sex on the first date, regardless of your age, I think as you get older, and you may say, well, you know what? I know what I like. I still think it's not an excuse for doing it right away when at the end of the day, where are you going? Now, if you're in that season, again, that's how you flow, and you don't believe from a religious standpoint or anything else that's not really impacting where you're coming from, then, be transparent. Because at the end of the day, remember that when you are having sex, you are, engaging someone else, and where are their expectations? And how much time have you had to have that conversation? All right? What's their sexual history? All types of questions are going to pop up, and I'm pretty sure in that short period of time you haven't had an opportunity to figure it all out. So I do think that as you get more mature, you should function more maturely. That being said, I'm sure there are a lot of people breaking rules all the time, but that's really the way that they should process it, in my humble opinion. Julia, thanks for joining us. Southern Girl, what's going on? I see you talking about it's in the wildness. MZ, thanks for staying up and checking in. I appreciate that. RTJ, thanks for joining us again. Allie says, dating has turned into a cerebral nightmare, a chess game of make the wrong move. I agree with you to some extent that Big Man Culture, thanks for joining us. I do think that to some extent it can become a nightmare, and I think the number one reason why it can become a nightmare is because patience. We're just swiping or sending a quick text, and you really don't have enough time to really get a good sense as to whether or not someone is a good fit. And so I think overall our attention span is shorter, our patience with one another is shorter, and the minute that someone may say or do something that we may not necessarily gel with, immediately we're on to the next thing. And I think that can be a collateral, just a disaster in many ways. The other part about it is that when you are looking for a certain type of individual, and you are on these social media platforms and things of that nature, we tend to just look at like what could be the best of someone, right? Because we don't typically are dense. In many ways, as a result of that, we turn up with a lot of disappointment when we actually meet that person, interact with that person. So be careful when you're out there. It can be a nightmare because, well, on social media, it's all a dream, right? The pictures and everything else. Mocha, thanks for joining us. I appreciate that. Miss Moneycake says we have gotten used to microwave satisfaction in dating. I agree with you. We are a microwave society. If you can't put it together in a combo, we don't want it. If it's not convenient, we don't want it. If it's not accessible within a short period of time, we don't want it. You're absolutely right. However, because that's the overall narrative for a society, it doesn't have to be yours. So just remember that, that what makes you different, don't be afraid to communicate it. What your expectations are, don't be afraid to communicate it. Analyze and take inventory of what your expectations are as well, because that's very key to see, well, what's actually reasonable and what's, something that you're doing a little too much when it comes to what you might be expecting. But you need to go ahead and do that as often as you can, so that you can stay in a good space and stay woke. Brandy, thanks for agreeing. Very true. Ms. Mika, thanks for joining. So again, this is Wednesdays with Wes, where we ask all types of random and anonymous questions. In addition to that, we want to answer your questions. So please, 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 as you have questions, comments, or whatever, go ahead and post them. And what I'll do is my best to respond to those questions. We like to keep it interactive and reflective of what your interests are. So that's the reason why I ask you so many times to reach out with your questions, make your comments be known. If for whatever reason it's too much for you to get acknowledged for, you can always slide in the DM with that question and we can go from there, okay? Okay, Alia says, you're saying, Donovan, you're right about people being ready to bail at the slightest, quirk. Again, be more patient, people. At the end of the day, before all of the social media, and I know it's here to stay, but before all of that, you would have a conversation with someone, and if there was something that you didn't necessarily like, you talked about it. You seek first to understand. So you would work it out. Figure it out. And there's nothing wrong with having diversity when it comes to a perspective or their take, their approach on a certain topic or whatever. So that's also the color of life, man, when you're actually able to have some conversations and gain additional perspective from that person, all right, as opposed to just swiping to the left or right. Is it okay to form a relationship with opposite sex while in a committed relationship? No. I mean, if you're talking about a friendship, that's fine. If you're talking about more than that, no. You really need not to swing from one branch to the other, so to speak. You need to let go of that relationship that you're in and allow yourself some time to heal. That's the healthiest way to transition. Is that the way that a lot of us do that? No. We tend to just, because we're so used to having someone in our life, we tend to just transition from one relationship into another relationship, and that's not a good way to go about it. You need to, heal from that relationship. If you have a friend, if there's somebody that you interact with or whatever, you got to keep that platonic as best you can, and that's it. If you're in a relationship and it's time to bail out of that relationship, and you've done all that you can, or you're just really not in that space anymore, and there's no more time you can invest in it, then do what you need to do and transition out of that relationship in a healthy way. But it's very good that you, after that transition, you heal from that you take some inventory of who you are post-relationship. Because if not, there may be a lot of unresolved issues that you have going into this next relationship, and they won't know why you just went from 0 to 60 that quick on the slightest thing that just took place, a comment, a gesture, a behavior that you observed, and the real reason is because you have those emotional minds that you never dug up, that you never examined and dealt with. So be careful about that, okay? Prior to my current relationship, Ms. Moneycake says, I encountered men often that would ask me, why am I single, and then try to say it must be something wrong with me because I'm single. There's nothing wrong with you because you're single. Well, I don't know you personally, mentally. Maybe there is something wrong. I'm just joking with you. But no. And this is a common, comment, right? People have to say, well, what's wrong? Why are you still single? Why aren't you married yet? There's nothing wrong with knowing who you are, being aware of who you are, being aware of what your standards are. And if you have if you're a unique person, well, it's not going to be overnight that you're going to have, that person in your life that you feel that you can build with and commit to. So there's nothing wrong with being single. It's good that during your single time that you spend time with yourself, like deliberate, intentional time with yourself, and not, just say, well, I'm single, I'm celebrating being single, but, examine your past relationships. examine who you are today and examine your list in terms of what are your standards for, when you are going to get into a relationship, who that person needs to be, what that person needs to be to you, and are you ready? Are you healthy? Are you what you're looking for in a relationship in terms of being in that position to make yourself open and vulnerable to what a relationship really needs to be in order for it to be successful? So these are the things you need to do. But in terms of there being something wrong with you, tell them that they just need to just fall back a little bit and get off of their opinionated soapbox. All right. You 36, single, no kids. What's wrong with you? And when did that become a plague? It's not a plague at all. As a matter of fact, at the end of the day, what you're finding, there's a lot of people already that are, in their late 30s, early 40s that are still single, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with it at all. I do think that at the end of the day, you should always continue to work on yourself. All right, friendships are good. As Calm Before the Storm said, you need to have good friendships, but at the end of the day, remember to build boundaries around your friendships, okay? Boundaries are important. If you're in a relationship and you have some friends, just make sure that they acknowledge the boundaries, that they understand also what your priorities are in terms of your relationship. Very important. People don't do that anymore, Donovan. What is that? They don't like to have the hard, difficult conversations. They just rather, get ghosts. You're right. But again, what's the quality of your relationship if at the end of the day, when things get a little tough, you're out, right? And you need to examine that. You need to examine that if you're one of those people. If you say, you know what, I ain't got time. I'm living my best life, blah, 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 I'm out. And, why did you do that so quickly? Obviously, in certain instances, you can look across the table and say, you know what, this person isn't worth it to me. I don't see enough there for me to invest more time, mind share, energy, spirit into really, seeing what's going on there. But I do believe that overall, our tolerance level is extremely low, and we're just quicker to just, swipe to the left or right. Jam Down Lady, you said if you had to put in the work and in the relationship and it seems to be going nowhere, how do you know when to draw the line? I think you draw the line when you realize that you've done all that you can. Honestly, I think that when you are in a relationship and you're doing as much work as you can, what does that look like? I mean, are you seeking counseling? Have you seen a third party? Perhaps a trusted friend that you both can communicate with if you're not able to get to, that counselor. Have you, talked in a way that has been very transparent and not, fighting? Have you, decided to write down, your thoughts and try to contribute? Have you tried to do the same thing in terms of engage your mate in some really serious conversation about, where you both are, not just their behavior, but your part to deal with it? These are a number of things that you do, activities to really engage each other in some serious dialogue about, where your relationship is right now. And how often are you, making these attempts? Did you have your last conversation or serious attempt last year versus, just last week or recently, something to that effect? So, what are you actually doing? How recently have you done it? And at the end of the day, you already know it takes two. So if you're the only one doing the work, or it feels that way, and that person is not taking some additional steps to increase, the energy to support the relationship, well, then I guess you got to pronounce the relationship dead and walk away, understanding that you did everything that you could in your power. Remember, at the end of the day, there are things that we let happen, things that happen to us, and there are things that we make happen. Unfortunately, in a relationship, you can't make it happen. You can do the best you can, but it does absolutely take two. Remember that. All right? So, Hayes says, I think when you had an experience and missed red flags in the past, it's easier to cut people off because you don't want to invest your energy or time, and that's what you're afraid of. And I agree that, you're afraid. And remember, fear, right? Fear is what? False expectations appearing to be real. right? And it's a fear. That's not actually what's happening, right? That's just you being triggered by past experiences to now project the future, and that's not the truth, right? What's going to happen is not actually what you just now professed it to be. It's just what you fear it to be. So remember that, and that's going to really have a significant impact on whether or not you're actually going to be able to engage, with a significant other in more meaningful ways. Get out of that fear space. That fear factor is significant because it now takes on a personality of its own because you're actually nurturing it. All right. Kai, I see you were commenting at Miss Moneycakes. You get the same question all the time, huh? Don't worry about it. There's nothing wrong with you, Kai. At least I don't think so. All right? It's called having standards and assessing, growing, and learning until the right person presents themselves. I agree, O-Drama. Donovan, like I always say, you need a sociology degree to figure this mess out. You ain't never lied, and that's the reason why y'all need to stay tuned in, right? Because my guests often also are providing additional perspectives, especially when you come out to our event. It's called the Relationship Script. The next one we have is actually in August 30th at the Moshulu, and we do have a number of other professionals that are going to provide additional perspectives to figure all this mess out. But remember, the number one component to that is you. Not saying that you're a mess. Some of you are. I'm a mess as well, by the way. But being transparent so that you can, and being raw and being open so that you can actually do the surgery. Remember, you can't do surgery when you're like this. That's not going to do anything. You got to open up so that we can do surgery on that heart of yours, okay? Nikki, you said, do you believe that we have soulmates or have relationships changed in the times and it's now a compromise? I do believe that you can have a soulmate. However, we talk about, people and their tolerance levels. And often, a soulmate is someone that regardless of where things are, whether or not you guys are in total alignment, there's a connection there. And so I do think that soulmates are more rare nowadays because, we don't necessarily, we are losing a dimension, I believe, because of, all of the online dating and social media and stuff like that, where the touch, right, the engagement, having conversation, not staring at our phones all day, things of that nature, that, you lose your senses. And so having a soulmate is tougher, I believe, because, you're not as connected, or we're not as connected as we once were. Okay. Pumpkin, I see you said, how do you deal with falling for a trusted friend? That's a very sticky area, right? You're very vulnerable, and you need to analyze, well, what is it, when you say falling, right? Falling for a trusted friend often involves you being in a certain season where there are certain needs that haven't been met. And this person being who they are, fulfilling that need, that void, so to speak. And now that's, the fact that they are that person is very seductive. It seduces you. You're looking for someone that will listen to you. And this friend is a great listener. Or you're looking for someone that is going to be your cheerleader. And this friend, again, is right there, bigging you up and all that stuff, making, real excited about, all the things that you're doing. And that can be very seductive. This happens a lot also, when you start talking about at the workplace, or if you're an entrepreneur where, a friend, a colleague that has similar interests, that energy between the two of you, because you're closely aligned on certain things, that can be very seductive. So, when you fall for a trusted friend, more than likely, especially if you're in a relationship, you need to analyze your relationship more, and you need to request that you and your mate have a conversation, talk about where you are and why your needs aren't being met, and prayerfully, your significant other will step up and pay more attention and be more accountable for what they're not bringing to the relationship in terms of attention. However, if you're not in a relationship and it's a trusted friend, again, examine that. Remember what season you're in. Perhaps it's organic, and this trusted friend is somebody that now you can take it to the next level with. But really have a discerning eye is what I'm just saying to you. It may be a season. All right. I hope that helps. Miss Money Case says, even those of us with a degree in the field need outside insight. Absolutely. Don't get it twisted, people. Even though this is Wednesdays with Wes, and as you're firing off these questions to me, I may answer the questions and give you some additional perspectives, but that does not mean that I myself don't talk to other professionals when I get an opportunity, or a trusted friend when it comes to getting some additional insight or perspective. Absolutely. I'm an avid reader. I also, I also do a lot of, I guess you could call it homework and studying. In addition to that, I definitely talk to other professionals, and I have my very close friends that I talk to about challenges that I have. So, all the time you should be in a space where you're just, you're still learning. You're still, a spirit of continuous improvement. So even if you have a degree, even if you have that certificate, it doesn't mean that, that you have all the answers or all of the possible perspectives to really to take in consideration when you're going through some of these situations in life. Okay, Kathy, thanks for joining us. Kara, I see you. We got 15 minutes left. Actually, it's about 13 minutes left, but it's all good. I think, when we got disconnected, maybe we might have a little more time, but I'm not going to give y'all more time. I'm going to cut it off at about 10 o'clock, okay? Just letting you know. Anyway, so, Allie, I see you saying I should have paraphrased my comment differently. Don't worry about it, Allie. Just keep participating like you always do. You always keep it interesting, all right? If you're just now, tuning in, if this is the first time that you catched Wednesdays with Wes, we like to ask all types of relationship questions. I have some in here, but I would like to, answer your question. Whatever question you may have, it doesn't matter. If you're married, single, separated, divorced, it doesn't matter if you're in a situation or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, there's no judgment here. I'm not here to, to judge you. And I ask that in this forum also that we don't have that kind of environment, that we don't facilitate or forge that kind of environment of questioning people or judging people based off of whatever questions that they may pose here. But if you have a question or comment and you think that it might be a little too whatever, and you don't want to be tied to it, feel free to DM us, through this channel here, and one of my teammates will pull it out and put it on the thread so that I can answer it. If not, what I'll do is I'll pull a question out of here. Who wants me to pull a question out of here? Wave your hand. If you want me to pull a question out of this bag instead of waiting for the next question to come through the group, wave your hand real quick so I can see who wants me to do that. Give y'all a couple of seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2. I don't see any questions, so okay, I see you, Kat. All right, so here we go. I see the hands now. All right. So it says, when you have an argument that is not resolved, are you still expected to handle your roles and responsibilities? That's a very good question. We talk a lot about, going on strike in the relationship when you have an argument, when there's not you guys are not on the same, same, space or, frame of mind, heated, things aren't going right in that moment. You're going to bed angry, all that good stuff. Should you shut it down? Should you boycott the relationship, your roles, your responsibilities? The answer to that is, to be perfect, no, you should just continue, right? But the reality is that I'm pretty sure there are going to be times when it comes to communication, it's not going to be the same. When it comes to your roles and responsibilities, now, if you have children together, you should be focused on making sure that the children do not suffer as it relates to, your roles and responsibilities. When it comes to your chores around the house, you should still handle your business. If you're the one that does the shopping or the cooking, some cleaning, what's going on, Cats? J-Mac, what's going on? If you're the one doing that, you need to be, still doing it. You should still handle the house is a business, and it still needs to run despite how you're feeling about that person. So be very careful to take care of your roles and responsibility. Pay those bills that you need to pay, okay? Now, in terms of from a sexual standpoint and all that, I don't believe that, you should be just still being intimate, and you're not talking or you're not really working through those things, regardless of if you're married or not. I don't think that you should, because sometimes it gives the impression that everything's okay, and making up in that way often may sweep things under the rug, and that's not really what you want to do. You want to take the time and the energy to focus on why you're in that space to begin with. Okay. All right. So it's 9:51, right? So please DM me if you have any more questions. I am going to answer one more question, maybe two. Let's see how far I can take it to 10 o'clock, and I'll keep it short on these. All right. All right. What are some respectable ways to end a relationship / situationship? A respectable way, interesting, to end a relationship or situationship. Respectfully. That's it. No, I'm just joking. But respect the person. Respect the person you're in a relationship with. Don't ghost them. Communicate where you are. Although it's a very ugly situation often, because no one wants to, be in a breakup. But, take in consideration their feelings and communicate in a way that is, not callous or juvenile or sophomoric or just insensitive. Don't do that. Talk with them, because they are human. And even though it didn't work out, it doesn't mean that, perhaps you can't be friends. I mean, perhaps you can. But you should be very sensitive in terms of how you handle that breakup. Talk about what didn't work, and really examine before the actual breakup as to whether or not you should break up. Maybe you're tired versus you're done. But when you do get to that place, you should communicate from a space of, just being concerned about that other individual, because if not, it can blow up and get worse. People today, the things that they can do or would want to do if they really feel rejected on a high level, that's not something that you really want to, you want to usher in. Okay, so be focused and be sensitive and be deliberate about the breakup, and that's it. All right. So it's 9:53. I think I'll do one more, and I hope that it stops being so spotty. But my team says it's got a little spottiness going on, and I'm going to again blame it on the rain. Question: my girlfriend has guy friends that have been around before we met. I don't like it. What do I do? You talk about it. You talk about it. You talk about why you don't like it. What is it about the guy friend that you don't like? Is it a matter of insecurity? Is it a matter of how she may treat the guy friend? What is it? What is it about that dynamic that has you feeling uneasy about it? I think at the end of the day, if that friend has been around before you came on board, well, you need to, get to know the friend and understand that this friend isn't going anywhere. I wouldn't create a situation where she has to choose between you and the friend, at the end of the day, especially if there's nothing disrespectful that's taking place. If there is something disrespectful taking place, well, that's different. You need to handle that, okay? Just remember that at the end of the day, communicate your feelings, and don't communicate, in terms of just anger and frustration. Talk about why you're feeling the way that you're feeling, so that, again, if that person is concerned about your feelings, then they should be able to, take inventory of how that situation is making them feel, and maybe they can do something about it. Maybe they can create an environment where, you can feel more comfortable. All right? So listen, it's 9:55. Just want to remind you again that there are a couple of things going down. Remember that we have the relationship script, August 30th at the Moshulu. If you're here in Philadelphia, you already know the Moshulu is beautiful. It's right there at Penn's Landing, a nice boat. We're going to have a great time there. If you're not from Philadelphia, if you're in Jersey, Delaware, D.C., Maryland, Baltimore, Virginia, I don't care, East Coast, Midwest, come out. Why not? Why not come to Philadelphia if you haven't had an opportunity? Make a weekend of it. But it's going to be an amazing event. We always have amazing events. There are people that I believe that are on the audience now that have come to the relationship script. Feel free to add on to the thread and let them know what your experience has been. It's a great interactive event. In addition to that, if you are a business owner, or if you know of a business owner that would be interested in getting some great exposure to our audience, to our network, please feel free to DM us as well. All right, we have some great sponsorship packages where we do a number of different things to make sure that, you know, your brand is, you know, there's a lot of brand awareness, exposure, opportunities to market your business, your product, your services. We have all of those things at our fingertips, and we're more than willing to have a conversation with you about that. Remember the other thing too, to register, okay? Get your tickets soon. As a matter of fact, we're going to go live with those tickets on Friday the 19th, okay? So on Friday the 19th, get your tickets. They will be at a special discounted rate for everybody that gets their tickets, and then we'll run that for, I don't know. I'm not going to even tell you, because all of you people who have melanin in your skin, you're going to wait till the last second to get it. Do something different with your life, okay? Get your life together and get the tickets early, all right? Anyway, you get what I'm going with it, all right? So anyway, it is 9:57. It's been an absolute pleasure, a pleasure to serve you guys, answer your questions. If you have any more questions and it's something on the tip of your tongue, just hit me in the DM, okay? And I'll make sure to answer your questions. For everybody that did that, I hope you feel good, right? For those of you who DM me, I wrote them down. My team wrote them down. We threw them in a bag, and I hope we picked some of those questions up, okay? So that you feel comfortable and that your questions were answered. Anything else you have on your mind, write it down, send it to us, type it, text it, whatever, okay? Remember to tell a friend, by the way, about Wednesdays with Wes. I hope that you enjoyed yourself. I hope that, the information you received has been relevant, provided some additional perspective. But I'd also like to make sure that you're part of the community that's making this grow. So I need you to identify 3 to 5 of your friends, your colleagues, people that you think would enjoy this dialogue, and reach out to them. Please forward this information to them, forward the page to them. Hey, have you checked out the relationship script? We have more content that's coming down the line, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be something that you're going to be interested in. All right? So this is Donovan West. It's been a wet Wednesday with Wes kind of evening. And in the meantime, I hope that you're in a dry place and you've enjoyed this past hour. Thanks again. Good night. And I'll see you soon.